All right, guys, this is how I lost $750 today trading NASDAQ. And let's jump right into my screen and just start with it. So I took this trade this morning and we're going to go ahead and just do a quick recap and go over everything that I learned. And hopefully we can kind of go over all the learning lessons with you guys so that I can say them out loud and remember them for the next day I'm trading. And so that you guys can also just take a couple good learning lessons from this. So today is the 12th. It is February 12th, 2026, and I am in Mountain Standard Time. So market for me opens at 7:30 in the morning. So let's go ahead and go do a quick little bar replay right when market opened. So here's market open, and it's looking pretty good. We've got London lows and we've got Asian lows below us. Now, this is really, really good generated liquidity, and that's the type of thing that I love to target for a take profit. And honestly, I think the best setup today would have been shorts to target all of those lows. You could have targeted London lows, Asian lows, or even these external lows all the way down here. So there's a bunch of different targets. Let me go ahead and just label that low resistance liquidity or generated liquidity. That's just a bunch of lows, and it is in the shape of a nice sloped line so that there's just lots of liquidity points that you can target for a take profit. So if we zoom out just a little bit to the 5 minute, let's go ahead and get rid of this. So this is what it looked like. Honestly, I was hoping we would have come up and swept this liquidity from, what was that, yesterday? Yeah, yesterday's highs, and then started going down. And because it never did that, I was hoping for any type of liquidity sweep, maybe even this liquidity sweep from this morning about close to an hour before market open. At the same time, ES was looking very similar, right? We've got the LRLR, the low resistance liquidity, and this one was a little bit different because we actually did sweep out the highs. So let's go ahead and fast forward just a little bit. Let me zoom in here and I'll show you exactly what happened. So on ES, we did sweep out the highs, and on NASDAQ, we did not. And I probably would have been comfortable to enter the trade if we retested this order block slash breaker block. Whoops. And then I could have targeted all of these lows, the same lows, right? Give that just a sec to load. All these lows, maybe the Asian lows would have been a great target. But the big first lesson that I learned today from not catching this short was I woke up too late. A couple days ago, I injured my ankle playing basketball, and I've been just sleeping and trying to rest and take it easy. And I actually woke up about 15 minutes after market open, and I didn't even see any of this happening. So that was one big mistake that I made. Yes, I need to, rest and just take it easy because of my ankle. But I, because I missed that, I was starting to feel a little bit of FOMO after I missed that big short opportunity. And in the same time, we also created, I forgot to mention this, just a little SMT right here between NASDAQ and ES. And that's a great opportunity, right? I don't know if there was a perfect entry on this. I don't think it did come back and retest. I think it just kept going down. But I mean, I didn't even have the opportunity to look. Like I could have maybe entered off of this bullish gap right here getting inversed, right? That's now considered an IFVG. So maybe I could have tried to enter somewhere on this bullish candle, retesting that, right? And it would have looked something kind of like, let's see here, somewhere on the inverse. If I wanted to run really high stops, you could just size down, size accordingly. It could have looked something like that, or if you want to just use the inverse as your stop loss. It's up to you guys. There's all kinds of different stop losses that you can do. But I think that was the best trade setup for today. And even still, if I were awake at the time that I saw that, and I saw that happen this morning at the market open, I probably would have hesitated quite a bit, and I probably wouldn't have taken that just because there was no real good retrace. Like I said, I wanted it to retrace into here. So, anyways, that opportunity we missed, right? And fast forward to where the market is now. Now I was telling myself, okay, if that's the case, if we never took out all these highs on NASDAQ, the morning highs that we did take out on ES, maybe we want to flip and go and take them out again. So I was hoping we would maybe run through all of this generated liquidity, which is what we did. And I was hoping we would take out these hourly lows right here, this low right here that I have taken out, that I have marked. And we did. However, as you probably just saw, market did not choose to reverse on us and go up and take these highs because that's when I was looking for a long. And that precisely is when I actually took my trade. So, right here, this is why I took my trade. I'll go ahead and just show you this real quick. On the 30-second, I had Tradevate open on my other computer screen. On Tradevate, this was a perfect unicorn breaker setup. This was a little bit bigger of a breaker block right here. And there's a little breaker. And so I chose to enter when we retested on this bearish candle right here. Okay. And I put my stops below the lows. And all I wanted to target was this internal liquidity point right here for a 1 to 2 RR. So I was pretty good with this trade. I liked the idea of it, and at the same time, what happened was we actually formed an SMT. Let me show you the SMT that we formed. I'll use this same line. This low got taken out on NASDAQ, but at that same time, it never got taken out on ES. And I liked that a lot. And I chose to take a long off for that because I thought we were going to reverse and go up here and target all these highs from days ago, right? And obviously, you see that I ended up getting stopped out pretty quickly. I liked at first seeing this, my entry was off of this little bearish candle, and I liked this bullish candle that inversed it immediately. I thought that was great. This is what that looked like. And I was actually going to move my stops to break even once we cleared this high right here. That was my plan. It would have looked something like this. If we closed above that, I would have moved to break even, and then I would have taken out my profits right here at that high for take profit number one. I wouldn't have held any runners just because that's a pretty far runner. I mean, you can if you want, but that I would prefer to take like 80% of my trade out, if not 90% of my trade out right here, because that's already a 1 to 2. And to get from here to there is pretty far. And I think it's best to just target low hanging fruit. So that was my trade idea. And as we can see, fast forward a couple of minutes, even though we inversed this bearish candle off of coming out of this little breaker, we did get stopped out. And this is another trade that I don't really feel too bad about. I feel like I followed my rules. Yes, I kind of woke up and I was a little bit lazy this morning, and I could have gotten up and maybe somehow gotten my way into that short, but I didn't. And in return, I took this trade, which the only thing I can think that I really did wrong here was maybe I should have focused on a higher time frame, and I should have waited for a little bit more higher time frame confluences to tell me that the market wants to go up, right? So, like, for example, we could have tried to treat this as a possible breaker setup to the upside, just like what I traded, but on the 5 minute. And this right here, that candle right there, would have been the breaker. So what could have been nice to see is we come up, actually form the breaker, right? Because it's a high, a low, and then you got to break that high. So you got to make a higher high, and then you have to come back and retest it. This would have been a really good breaker model to the upside, but that didn't happen, obviously. And so sometimes when I lose trade setups, even though I followed my rules, the only thing that I can think of that I could have done better maybe is waited for that same setup, but just on a higher time frame, right? Because the market is fractal, which means what happens on one time frame will happen on a bigger time frame, and will happen on the daily, will happen on the weekly, right? You get all the same movement and the same like algorithmic movements on this on every single time frame. So that's what fractal means. I had to learn that a while ago, but once I did learn that, it helped a lot. And so I think even though yes, there was an SMT, there was a liquidity sweep, I thought that the next main liquidity target was pretty far away. I ended up getting stopped out, and fast forward, we ended up just going way down, and we tagged those lows as well. And so days like this, I feel like I followed my rules pretty good, but it probably wasn't the best trade only because it was on the 30-second and I should have maybe waited for a higher time frame confluence instead of just one little 30-second breaker model. I think 30-second breaker models do work, but I think it probably works for smaller trades. Like this was a big trade. I was targeting 77 points on Nasdaq. That's a little bit bigger than normal, I would say. I mean, that's average, or maybe a little bit bigger than normal trade setups, a 77-point target. And I think, like I said, a 30-second breaker model will work, but maybe on a lower time frame, right? Maybe if I'm only targeting 20 or 30 or 40 points on Nasdaq. And so that's kind of the process. Hopefully that makes sense why I chose to take this trade, especially on NASDAQ. I didn't want to take it on ES just because we had that first take profit, but the main external liquidity points were this one and the one that I already have marked out right here, this guy right here. So it was just those two that were my main targets. And so, it was a loss, but we only took one trade. I've mentioned in a couple of my other videos that I know from personal experience, I am not the best at taking two or more trades. I've found from many losses that when I take two trades or more, just more than one trade, I typically revenge, FOMO, or overtrade. And so I know I can't handle that right now in my trading career. So I'm trying to just take initiative and be aware of that. And I'm only limiting myself to one trade a day. I have a couple friends that do that, and they do great. He taught me that he doesn't like to take more than one trade a day just because it teaches him discipline, teaches him to focus and wait for the market to set up. And he chooses to take it, almost forces you to take the best setup that you can find that day. So if there is no good setup, then just don't trade. It's either no trade or maybe one good trade. But that's just the way I do it. Some people take 10 trades a day. It just depends on your strategy. But hopefully you guys understood why I took this trade today. Again, the learning lessons, get up earlier. Yes, I need to rest my body because I hurt my ankle, but I still can get up 20 minutes earlier and maybe just take a nap later in the day if I need to. There's always a way around things. And then maybe just look at higher time frames instead of smaller time frames, especially for a big trade like this. A 30-second breaker works, but maybe not for such a big trade idea. So these are the two learning lessons that I can think of today. If you guys have any other ideas of what I can do better, leave it in the comments. I would love to get your input, your ideas, because I'm just trying to be a better trader myself, and I want to help you guys become better traders as well, because I've been doing this for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and I've barely made any money. I work with prop firms. I've worked with a bunch of different prop firms. I've used all their evals, their funded accounts. I've blown so many accounts, and I am just sick of it. So the point of this channel is to kind of treat it like a journal, right? Go through, back test my ideas, go through exactly why I took this trade, what was my thought process, what was I feeling, what was the psychological reason behind why I took the trade. And we're just here to get better. So it's going to take time. It's going to take a long time. I understand nobody really flips a switch like that and becomes profitable overnight. It takes weeks, months, even years of practice. So it's a skill. Let's remember that, and just remember that, the market opens the same time the next day. So there's always another day to practice and get better. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.